Welcome back, everybody. Today you will learn the official rules for travel in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, along with some tips and tricks. Looking at the core rulebook on page 261, we learn traveling in the Empire is very dangerous. You can choose to purchase a ride on any road or river for a set price. Alternatively, you can travel as fast as the slowest person in your party, equal to their movement per hour. You can travel 6 hours a day before you need to take an endurance skill test to avoid fatigue. Here's my recommendation on travel. Find a map of the Empire or wherever your adventure will take place. For example, here is a map of Reichland. Make sure you set the grid scale so the distances between locations are correct. This is great for a sandbox campaign because your players can choose to buy a ride or travel wherever they want. It is important to remember that food, shelter, and water are not included in the price for rides. Assuming you are a generous dungeon master, a meal in a common room at the local inn costs 1 silver shilling and 10 brass pennies. If players decide that cold, hard rations beside the campfire is better, then that option costs 2 silver shillings. Personally, I prefer the inn so I can gossip and gamble. If you are a die-hard survivalist, you can gather food in the wilderness. You can roll an outdoor survival test to feed one person. Each success level lets you feed more people. If you have a bow to hunt or a fishing rod to fish, you can feed double the number of people. If you have the set trap skill, you can hunt using animal traps. You can also gather herbs if you have the lore herb skill. The important thing is to remember that if you fail, you must roll a challenging endurance test or gain the fatigue condition. Here's my recommendation. Rolling every day to gather food is boring and slows the game down too much. Instead, have your players gather food and herbs all at once at the start of the journey. For example, if it is a 5-day journey, they roll 5 times. This will speed up the game and give players a false sense of security until something bad happens. When something bad happens, you should reduce the amount they would have gathered based on how many days remain in their journey. If you cannot get enough food or water, then you will need to pass endurance tests, or you will be thirsty and starve. Page 181 of the core rulebook has the details. This type of challenge is perfect for a long journey into the wasteland, or World's Edge Mountains, or Kislev. Traveling in cold or hot environments is just as bad as starving. Every 2 to 4 hours requires an endurance test. Luckily, you can buy a tinderbox, tent, bedroll, blanket, and coat to help against the cold. You can buy water skins, a backpack, and a cloak to protect against hot environments. Here is my recommendation. You should only roll for exposure to difficult environments if players refuse to buy the right equipment, or if an event happens, like a storm. If players can't figure out what equipment to buy, make them spend some silver shillings to learn the information and tell them. Environmental challenges should force players into difficult choices. Do they brave the storm or explore the deep, dark, icy cave filled with frozen poop? The last thing to consider are travel events during the journey. Page 263 of the core rulebook has a table with random travel events. My recommendation is to use the table only as inspiration and create your own challenges to throw at the players on the adventure. The table is too vague to pick up and use without planning out the details. Thank you very much for joining us to learn the travel rules in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 4th Edition.